We have come to the end of the second day of questioning of Helen Steel at the undercover policing inquiry. Over the last little section, she has described the way in which the relationship with John Dines ended 5 months after his deployment was meant to have ended. She started describing the beginning of how she started to look for him first, worried about him, that he was in a terrible state. And then once she found the death certificate of John Barker at St Catherine's house, I started to become worried that actually he was an undercover police officer. She will return on 24th of July, if not before, to explore that element of her evidence. Yeah, that was it for today. It was very, very, very emotional. I'm joined by Janet and Lou, who listened to the evidence. What did you make of what Helen had to say?
Well, it's difficult to know what to say because the evidence on Friday, the barrister Helen sort of took us up to her being dumped. She mid-20s, wasn't she, this time, in a caravan by herself in the middle of winter before mobile phone. Complete and utter isolation, and you think that's awful. I mean, obviously it's awful, and then the testimony today. Cover, Helen said at one point it's sadistic, and it is. There is no other word for it. That the I love you, I hate you, I can't cope. It's all me. Oh my God, all these disasters are happening to me. I can't remember how many letters he sent between ostensibly ending the relationship and his deployment and actually the last one.
Huge numbers.
It was huge numbers. Yeah. That's just.
At one point, she said that when he hadn't rung for 3 days, she got very worried because that's how often it was he was contacting.
Yeah, and it was very striking that she said that he could phone her whenever he wanted, but she had to go through some sort of post-restaurant address to get any sort of crumb from him, and the level of she laid out very, very clearly a coercively controlling relationship that wasn't in isolation. It was exactly as she said at the end, and a whole pattern of systemic control. Yeah.
I mean, I think it wasn't just the letters, was it? So there would be I have to leave, I'm terrified you'll leave me, so I have to leave, which obviously Helen found completely baffling. And then he would turn up. It wasn't just the letters, it was the physical presence. So then meeting up and then another holiday in Barra. And, continually, I think, Janet, you said last week, it was like he was picking at a wound, repeatedly picking over and over again, the scar's nearly healed, pull it apart again. It's pure sadism, quite extraordinary, really.
Yeah, you very much got the impression that he was doing his very best to destroy a sense of self and to spin her out, to make her incredibly confused and an emotional state. Obviously, this is right at the same time as she is in the middle of the McLibel trial, that she has got a tremendous amount of work representing herself in the longest case in British legal history. A phenomenal body of work just to do that. At the same time, she is being spun out left, right, and centre. She talked about on Friday. She talked about how he would start pointless arguments just before some of the pre-hearings were happening. But this putting her in this state, just as it's starting to get more serious. It's hard not to feel that this was contrived. She described as well after he'd been gone for a while, that when the got the substantive part of the McLibel trial, that she was thinking about him every day. That though he'd gone, he was still very much there, present in her mind. Meaning that while she was having this huge body of work, she made the time to go to St Catherine's house, to go through in pre-computerized records time. It is not a small job to find a death certificate. These 4 huge binders for every year, going through it you have to go through it page by page and finding the death certificate of John Barker. And also, she said she literally just found out from one of the documents that was shown last week that the SDS was aware that she had accessed those records before she requested the certificate.
I think it said that the SDS knew that some of the people they'd been spying on had got into St Catherine's house. So yes. I think Helen found that out sort of very recently. Yeah. Sorry,
And
I
that
interrupted you there.
can only, there can't have been an alert because it wasn't digital. So it must have been that somebody followed her, and that would have been from the libel trial. So again, what you're saying, that there might be some sort of connection. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we have heard evidence of other undercover officers, like Jason Bishop, even talking about that Operation Muskrat was, all the undercover officers were on alert to report anything they could about Helen Steel, because there was this fear that she was going to track down John Dines, and really showed how, that the SDS were obsessed with her and terrified of her. And it turned out to be right, didn't they?
Well, I guess she was learning quite a lot, wasn't she, in the libel trial itself? You talk about how difficult it is to find a death certificate. Well, she was gaining those skills, wasn't she?
Yes. Yeah, very much. There was a section which we can't talk about at all at the end of the hearing, where Helen responded directly to the question that John Mitting asked her at the end on Friday about the supposed genuine feelings that and some of the undercover officers had. I mean, to be fair to him, he said that he was convinced that it was nothing more than cynical manipulation by John Dines of her, but in some of the other cases. She responded very fully to that over about 15-20 minutes, all of which is cut from the broadcast and we can't talk about, but I think probably will explain part of why all of us are quite emotional. It has been a very, very, very intense piece of evidence that Helen has given, and I really want to pay tribute to the incredible work that she's done in bringing together all the people who were affected by undercover policing, and the fact we're here today, which I don't think would have happened if it wasn't for all the things that she did. She will be coming back in July, if not before. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, what seems to be coming out very clearly, I mean, one of the things that, of many things that come out very clearly, that it was a pattern of absolute coercive control that was at the best, a blind eye was turned, but it was much more than that. But it was, it wasn't, there was I don't know. I mean, maybe there was with Helen's situation, wanted to sort of destabilize. I mean, so there was definitely, from what she said, to destabilize around the McDonald libel trial, but certainly there just seems to be an element of power.
Yes.
Of what they their deployment had finished, but they couldn't walk away because they were just so caught up in this power that they were enjoying, and it's it's sadistic, it's cruel, it's callous, and they get to walk away, and the people that they abuse live with it for they're the ones that are living with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something definitely in the motivation. Like, I mean, she points to the motivation of the desire to sexually exploit a young, attractive woman. She didn't say attractive, but because she wouldn't. But that is clearly a big motivation for him. But there is something like particularly disturbing about the power. Also, I mean, we were pointed out the comments by, I think it was HM118, I think, in the Operation Sparkler interviews, where he talks about how John Dines didn't want to leave the field at the time that he did, because and he felt it was due to the competitive nature he had with Bob Lambert, that he wanted to somehow outdo Bob Lambert, which, I mean, Jesus Christ. What a bunch of bastards. What a bunch of absolute bastards. We've had a comment from Kathleen Quinn. What a remarkable woman. No wonder they were terrified that her quest for truth and compassion. Yeah, absolutely. And, they were right to be scared, quite frankly. It's been a heavy day. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just think at the end, even though, we're not able to talk about what Helen said, but I thought it was typical of Helen.
Yes.
So what she did, after giving a day and a half of really grueling evidence about what had happened to her on a personal level, she really isn't that interested in what happened to her on a personal level. She's interested in justice and truth.
Yes.
And she wants to make she wants to always say, no, it wasn't just me, it wasn't just him. This was a pattern, and this has been happening systematically under the eyes of people who were running the show. And please don't pull it down to just my personal tragedy.
Mm,
You know, it's
yeah.
much, much bigger than that. And that is Helen through and through.
Yeah, very much, absolutely. All right, thanks for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's John Greeny and another of the backroom staff. It'll be slightly different pace, I would imagine, to what we've heard for the last couple of hours. Please like, share these videos. It makes a huge difference to how visible they are. Thanks for joining us. I will see you all again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.